So, finally, it came in the mail. I got my Apple Card. $10,000 cash limit. And what is it? The APR is 13%. Look at this bad boy. So, just getting ready to start my computer. So, this is the Apple Card. I already activated it. It came in the mail and I had to actually go get it. But this is the Apple Card. You've already seen this. Enough people have already showed it to you. Finally got my Apple Card. Don't want you to see my full name, you fuckers. So anyway, let's see what we got here. Goldman Sachs MasterCard. That's the real truth behind Apple Card. It's a Goldman Sachs MasterCard. Apple is the people who designed the software. Goldman Sachs is the bank behind it. And MasterCard is the transfer system. Just like Visa, MasterCard, those are both transfer systems. So there you go. That's my Apple Card. Now, I have to say, one thing that amazing, I guess everybody just wanted to feel this thing. They wanted to get a good feel for the Apple Card. The thing, that, being made of metal, when you plunk this fucking thing down, it makes the sound. It goes plunk. Like, that's like a power move. Like, you do like that. Yeah. It's like a power move right there. Like, okay, everybody, yeah, we had a great dinner and everything. Just put it all on my Apple Card. Just plunk that motherfucker down. And it makes that sound. It's like, this thing looks so sharp. Like, you could cut julienne fries with this thing. It's amazing. It's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely amazing. Android users don't have no Apple Card. And even if they had an Android card, it just wouldn't be as cool. It just wouldn't be as cool. I'm sorry. So the reason why I'm making this video is not only to brag to the Galaxy 10 users about the new Apple Card that I got. It's not only to brag about the fact that I got the Apple Card and you don't, and you never will. But on top of that, it's also because later in this video, I'm going to explain aspects of building good credit, maintaining good credit, and getting yourself an 800 credit score. And I'm also going to show you this chat that I had with this kid who got approved for an Apple Card, but had no idea what any of the fine print means because they don't teach these kids nothing and they don't want you knowing nothing. They want you to end up in debt. So I did my best to explain it to him. So that's what this video is all about. So I just want you to watch this video. But as I've already said, I like this thing. I really don't see myself using this thing that much because I have my Capital One venture. So Apple is going to see this video. I'm going to make sure they see this video because I want them to know that I'm explaining to people how this shit actually works, because most people don't understand credit, especially if they're kids who have an Apple phone or Apple iPad and they're signing up for this thing and they don't really know what they're in for. So I just want Apple to know, and Goldman Sachs, that I'm teaching people about credit use and building their credit. And I'm also explaining to them how to pay minimum payments immediately rather than wait, and to pay off their bills. I don't want y'all collecting any interest off of anybody, honestly. I understand that some people you're going to get, but nobody who I get my tentacles around, you're not getting none of them. I'm going to rescue all of them from themselves, like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman. Only I'm going to do it better because I'm going to actually explain it to them in terms that they can understand. What you're seeing right now is a screenshot that I took on my cell phone the moment that I applied for Apple Card and was accepted into it, I should say. I was trying to think of a better word, but there really isn't one. I was accepted into it. And the reason why I wanted to make this video was because after applying for it and getting it and then sitting to wait for the physical card to get here, there were a couple of thoughts that went through my mind about the possible implications that Apple Card would have on my credit, on my future of credit spending, and basically on my wallet. So as you can see, my credit limit was $10,000 with an APR of 12.99%. As far as I know, 12.99% is probably one of the lowest APRs you can get. There is no annual fee, as they are so happy to say. If there had been an annual fee, most people probably wouldn't have gotten it. But the reason why I'm making this video is because I want to talk about some of the implications that you haven't thought of, things that didn't really occur to me till later. First of all, in order to have good credit, there are a couple of things that you have to do. And one of those things is to pay your bills on time. Now, me personally, I haven't had this problem. What I do is, as soon as I make a purchase that day or the next day, as soon as it gets posted to the actual credit account, you can see it, I pay it off immediately. This way, I never run into the issue of maintaining a rotating balance and causing myself to incur interest and whatever service fees they have and whatnot. See, what you have to understand, when you use a credit card, they are allowed to charge you up to about 28.9% interest. They're not allowed to go over that because of something called a usury law. However, some of that may have changed depending upon what state you're in. So in some states, the usury laws may actually allow them to charge a little bit more. But the thing about it is, even if they are limited to charging you 28.9% interest on whatever you buy, the issue is they can actually charge you way more than that, not illegally, but they can get around a loophole that allows them to charge you finance charges or to hit you with a sudden late payment fee if you are ever late paying the card. Sometimes that late payment fee is $15, but more than often it's going to be $30. And I'm pretty sure you'd feel pretty stupid if you bought something that was only $50, didn't pay on time, and ended up with a late payment of $30. That's ridiculous, because then you'd owe over $80 for something that only costs $50. That's the reason why I always pay immediately. I don't even wait for the bill to get to my house. On-time payments are most important for your credit card, your car, and your house. Any credit that you've signed up for should always be paid on time, including your cell phone bills. A lot of people don't realize that cell phone bills, student loans, and anything else that their social security number is attached to, those things must be paid on time. And the issue is, if you don't pay these things on time, well, what will probably happen is the credit card company or whatever the loan agency is will sue you in court, and they will win. And then the judge will put a garnishment on your wages, and that means you can lose probably 10% of your wages. So if you only make $1,000, you might lose like up to $100 every single paycheck. And they'll take that and put that towards paying whatever court fees were incurred, plus the actual money you owe, until that principal and whatever interest is incurred is paid off. So don't let that be you. Whatever your credit card bill is, whatever your student loan bill is, don't try to ignore it. Pay it on time, immediately. One of the other aspects involved in your credit score that has a moderate impact, it's not such a big deal because they know that time takes time. I mean, I can't turn 30 and I can't turn 50 years old tomorrow. And most of them already understand that you start your credit at 18. But basically, what they're looking for in your credit score is what's the age of your oldest credit account. Keep in mind, what you're basically doing is you're borrowing money to use that money in order to prove to them that you'll pay them back under the agreement. So when you borrow $1,000, they want to make sure that you prove to them that you're paying back that $1,000 and whatever the amount of time is that you promise you're going to pay it back. Now, a credit card allows you basically an unlimited amount of time, and the reason why is because they're going to collect interest off of you until that debt is repaid. The faster you pay that debt back, the less money they're going to earn off of you. They don't actually like that. They want you to take time to pay it back because it really costs them nothing to give you the credit, and you're going to be on the hook for the real money in the real world up until you pay this balance off. So the best you can have is a very, very long-standing credit account. And we're talking basically 5 to 10 years. If you have a good year, if you have 5 years of excellent credit history, never been late, that's perfect. If you have 10 years, that's even more perfect. If you have 20 years, that's excellent. So the bottom line is you have to maintain credit accounts for a long time. Don't close your credit accounts. Keep them open, because if you keep them open even after they're paid off, that gives you an account that the bank can look at and say, oh, well, you've had these credit accounts for 10, 15 years. So obviously you can be trusted with credit. The next thing is percent of credit used. And this is pretty obvious. The issue is no matter how much credit you have, you want to be using as little of it as possible. For example, if I have only one credit card to my name and it's $1,000 limit, right? If I go out and spend all $1,000 of that credit, then the amount that I'm using of credit at the time is 100%. Banks don't want to see you using 100%, especially if you're applying for new credit. Say you want to get a car loan or a house. Banks want to see that you're using almost none of your credit. So if you have less than 5%, you're fine. So if I have $1,000 credit limit and I'm using 5% of it at any given time, that's not too big a deal. If I'm using 1%, that's even better. They want to see that you're using as little credit as possible. They want to see that you're making purchases out of pocket and that you're only using credit kind of as a supplement. That helps you build your credit score. It helps more, and I'll talk about this later, if you have more available credit and you're using less of it. So if you have $30,000 or $50,000 and you're only using 2 or 3% at any given time, you're doing great. The next thing is a little bit harder to deal with because when you go to apply for a loan or somebody runs your credit, you've heard people offer you credit. Let's say you go to Best Buy, you want to buy a part for your computer. And they're like, oh, well, if you can't afford it, we can give you the Best Buy card. Or let's say you're at Micro Center, you want to buy a computer part, or you want to buy a desk chair or something. And we can give you a credit card. Or let's say you're in Macy's, you want to buy some furniture. Oh, we can give you the Macy's card. The issue is each and every time these people run your credit, that signals the bank that you're looking to take on more credit. Now, to admit, I lost a couple of points on my credit when I applied for Apple Card and was approved for Apple Card. And the reason why is because they do a hard inquiry on your credit, which means that they take a good long look at your credit history. Now, if you're a person who has a very high credit score like me and you have a long credit history that shows that you're trustworthy and you own houses like I do, or you own a $70,000 car or something, they don't have to look at your credit that long to figure out, okay, this is a person we can trust. But if you're a person who's brand new and you're a student who just graduated or something, they're going to look at you a little bit closer and they're going to say, well, how many student loans does this kid have? Or is he paying on his student loans? Is he defaulting on his student loans? So hard inquiries hurt your credit score. Soft inquiries, which may be made, if let's say you sign up for a credit monitoring service, they may do one hard inquiry on you, but every now and then they'll do a soft inquiry just to make sure your credit's actually improving. Softer inquiries don't hurt you that much, and they're always going to be done anyway because every now and then the credit bureaus are going to check on you. But bottom line is this: you shouldn't sign up for credit cards left and right just to have a bunch of credit cards. In my opinion, you should have one Visa, one MasterCard, one American Express. Now, because I already had a debit card, then that had the Visa logo on it, which means it's accepted anywhere Visa and MasterCard logos are accepted, because pretty much they're all accepted in the same place. If you have one Visa, one MasterCard, one American Express, you're okay, because that means that you can go to just about anywhere and you'll have credit you can use. The Apple Card is really a Goldman Sachs MasterCard. So if you do manage to get Apple Card, that's a MasterCard. That's the only MasterCard you really need. A Visa and an American Express are the only other things that you might consider getting, especially if you're a world traveler like I am. I like having a credit card for emergency purposes. Let's say if somebody steals my fucking wallet or some shit, or let's say if my bags get lost in transit or whatever, I can take a credit card and I can go shopping to buy the things that I need immediately in an emergency. I always carry a spare credit card as an emergency. But you shouldn't be using these things unless you have a plan to repay it immediately, like I talked about in the very beginning. It's always important to pay it back as quickly as possible so that this way the banks never get interest off of you. And this way you don't find yourself falling into debt. Don't think of a credit card as a weapon against you to put you in the bonds of slavery like these fuckers who debt shame people on the internet talk about. You have to think about a credit card as a tool. It's a tool that can be used in emergency purposes. Let's say you get into a car accident and you suddenly find yourself needing money and you don't have money. Let's say you don't have access to a bank. Let's say you can't get a debit card to get to the bank right now. Your credit card gives you 30 days to pay the money back. The problem that most people have is that they take it and they buy frivolous shit that they can't afford because they didn't have the money to afford it in the first place. They didn't have the cash money. And they buy stuff and they basically can't pay it back. So the issue is you don't want to be signing up for credit cards left and right. If you get one credit card every, let's say, 5 years, then you'll have an excellent rating in the inquiries section. However, if you're a person who buys a bunch of cars or buys a bunch of houses, because me personally, I had a number of inquiries recently because I bought houses and I bought cars. So because of that, my credit inquiries is always going to be higher than the average person unless that person goes to the mall and sign up for credit cards left and right. So this is the simple rule. You want as few inquiries on your credit as possible. And that's just it. So you want to treat your credit inquiries, signing up for credit, you want to treat that with caution and care. Directly attached to the number of inquiries made on your credit is the number of new accounts that you've opened in the past 2 years. Now, when we say the number of accounts you've opened, keep in mind some of your inquiries may just be inquiries that did not end up with you actually taking on more credit. Like I can go right now and I can apply for, a credit card for Walmart. But maybe, let's say they say, well, you know what, you've already got too many credit cards, so we're not going to give you one. So what that'll do is give me one inquiry, but it won't add to the number of accounts that I've opened in the past 2 years. However, let's say I go to the car dealership and I say, hey, I'm interested in that new Toyota Supra. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean Supra. I'm interested in that new Toyota Supra. And, I want a really small car that goes really slow, and I don't mind the possibility of being hit by a Jeep Grand Cherokee at speed and crushing my body because I like little small bullshit cars to drive around with so I can look cool. So they may do the inquiry, and then they'll say, hey, great news. We can give you a loan straight from the Bank of Toyota in Japan. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great. Oh, yeah, so what color you want your Supra in? And I'd be like, okay, I want blue. And they'd be like, oh, okay, great. We got a blue one right here for you. And then you sign on the dotted line and you drive that piece of shit off the lot. Well, guess what? Not only did you get an inquiry, but now you actually took on more credit. So now that number adds to the number of credit accounts that you've opened in the past 2 years. And again, banks do not want to see you opening a number of credit cards in a very short period of time because what they think is that you must have fallen on hard times or you're in an emergency situation in your life and that you're planning to use those cards. Like, for instance, like there's some people out there who's suicidal. For all we know, they might take a bunch of credit cards, spend up a lot of money, and then go, on a rampage or some shit like that guy Paddock in that hotel. The banks are always watching you. Credit cards are tracking your behavior. And the whole point of credit is that if you can trust me with $100, you can trust me with $1,000, you can trust me with $100,000, and then you can trust me with $300,000. So what you're basically doing is you're telling the bank, give me money, I will pay it back, and I have a job that'll allow me to pay it back. You can trust me, I'm credit worthy. And it tracks your behavior. Did you pay us back or did you not pay us back? Now, the banks really want you to pay them back, but they want you to do it slowly because the slower you do it, the more interest they can collect off of you. What they don't want is some asshole like me who shows up with the full payment each and every single time I charge something and give them so much money up front that they never have a chance to earn interest off of me. A client like me is actually bad for business. They want somebody who's going to fuck up every now and then and be late. They can charge you 30, 40, whatever they want as a late payment plus finance charges. I'm not going to let that shit happen. And they know it by now. That's why, like with my American Express card, I barely used it, and they called me up, say, "Hey, if you don't use this, we're going to close it." So, in order to protect my total available credit, what I did was I went out and spent some money on it just so they wouldn't close it. So I bought like a fucking slushie or something like that. And it's just something simple, just to put activity on the card. And then I paid it back almost immediately. But that was only so that they didn't do any damage to my account. Which brings me to Apple Card. Apple Card should not really be called Apple Card. It should really be called Goldman Sachs MasterCard. Goldman Sachs is who does the inquiry on your credit report in order to make sure you're credit worthy, not Apple. It even shows up under Goldman Sachs names. Now, if you know anything about the history of Goldman Sachs, some people will say these people are part of the reason why we had the 2008 financial crisis in the first place. Other people would say they were the masterminds behind the 2008 financial crisis. But conspiracy theories aside, the issue that ultimately everybody needs to think about with Apple Card is, why are you getting it? Now, me personally, I'm getting it just for the novelty of having Apple Card. Now, one of the benefits of getting it is that with this new $10,000 limit, if there's something that I decide that I want to buy and I don't want to use my Capital One Venture card, which I really would prefer to use because of the frequent flyer miles that I'll get back that I will use to upgrade to business class, there will be probably unforeseen rewards that Apple is going to try to get to use to entice people to get Apple Card. But the thing about it is, I have a $10,000 limit on my Visa card, and now I have a $10,000 limit on this Apple Card, which boosted up my total available credit by $10,000 when I got the card. So the thing about it is, now that I have that, I have to somehow maintain it, despite the fact I really can't think of any situation where I really would want to use this over my Capital One Venture card. For the very longest, I'd only been using one card in order to reap rewards for my frequent flyer flights, because as you know, I travel the world. Like, I go to Southeast Asia and wherever else, like Asia, Africa, Seychelles, whatever. So my thing is, yeah, it's good to have it. But the problem is, what happens if you stop using it and they threaten to take it away? Well, you're going to have to use it eventually. And the reason why is because you don't want them to take it away, because part of your credit score involves maintaining a high credit availability. Now, that's something most people don't talk about. A lot of people are scared of credit cards. They think that they're bad and they think they'll just put you in debt. If you have mental discipline to not go into debt, then you don't have to worry about it. And you can use these things to work your way up to the house that you want, which you won't be able to afford unless you have the cash. People like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman, they talk a lot of shit about debt, but what they're doing is they're debt shaming people who are already in debt. They're not teaching people how to build their credit, because as far as they're concerned, they don't care about credit. They don't believe in credit. But these people have so much cash money from their radio shows, from their YouTube videos. These people have so much cash money that they can buy basically whatever they want cash. They don't have to use credit. Credit is for the plebeians out there. Credit is for people who don't have access to piles of cash and don't have access to huge wads of money. Like, anybody who wants to purchase a new car, they're not walking into a dealership with $30,000 in fucking cash. I can guarantee you that. The average person isn't doing that. The average person is not walking into Century 21 and buying a house cash with $400,000 or $500,000. Not unless you're one of these Chinese businesses or one of these Asian bankers or something coming into America to buy up our property, because America has been buying up all of your manufactured goods and sending worthless US dollars over to your country, and you've been amassing that cash in a closet like Saddam Hussein. The average person isn't doing that. Drug dealers might be walking into these places buying stuff cash and Cadillacs and fucking McLarens and shit. Drug dealers might do something like that. The average person isn't. So bottom line is this: you have to build your credit. Otherwise, you will have nothing. You may be able to save up cash money, but you won't have the things that you probably need to make your life easier. And in an emergency situation where you suddenly need more money than you actually have, you absolutely won't have it. I mean, think about it like this. If your boiler in your house suddenly exploded and you needed to get your hands on $5,000, but you only had $2,000 saved up, what are you going to do? If your roof suddenly collapsed because of shoddy engineering, what are you going to do? If your car suddenly broke down and you need, just to get back and forth to work, what are you going to do? And you've got a $3,000 repair bill for your transmission or some shit. What are you going to do? No, you need credit. I've had friends who tried to buy things with credit and they didn't have any credit at all because they never actually built their credit. And they were offered a new credit account, but the problem is the interest rates were high, and they were worse than if you had bad credit. Having no credit, it is possible to have no credit. I've seen it. You can either have no credit, bad credit, or good credit. You have to build your credit one way or another. Now, I would think that most people who are listening to the sound of my voice are probably college students who signed up for Apple Card, and you're just going around YouTube thinking about what people are saying about Apple Card. For me, Apple Card is just a gimmick for me. I already got a credit card that I prefer to use because it gives me flyer miles. Apple will have to work hard to offer me something better to stop me from using the other card. I don't know what they're going to offer, but one thing I know about Apple is when it comes to locking people into the iPhone ecosystem or the iOS ecosystem with cool stuff, I understand that they know what they're doing. They'll figure something out just to deal with people like me. For every dollar that you borrow from me, you're going to pay it back. But in addition to that dollar, you're going to pay whatever I say the interest rate is. If I say the interest rate is 10%, for every dollar you borrow, you got to pay me $1.10 back. So I don't know what your interest rate on this card is, but for every single dollar you buy, what do you remember your interest rate?
I think I have it. Yeah, I don't.
The thing about it is, it's sad that they give college kids credit cards, but they don't teach you how to use them.
I know. That's why I'm not really into that.
I'll tell you like this: the worst thing you can ever think is that your credit limit is how much money you actually have, because it's not your money. What it is it tells you how much you're allowed to borrow. But when you pay it back, if you don't pay it back immediately,
they'll charge you more.
If you pay it back immediately, that's when they don't charge you the interest. So it's like right now, if I use my credit card right now to buy some tacos or some shit, right? Let's say I buy $10 worth of Taco Bell. Mm-hmm. If I pay it back before the end of the month, I only pay back $10. But if you wait till after that month, when the bill comes, now you owe them the interest. So if the interest was 13%, that means now I have to pay the $10 back plus 13% of that. And then if you're late, they charge you a late charge. Now I don't think Apple Pay has a late fee. I don't think it does. But most credit cards, they charge you late charges. That's where people screw up, because not only do they get a late charge, but they get finance charges too.
Yeah.
So because it's illegal for them, they cannot charge you 30% interest. It's illegal. But what they do is, instead of charging you 30% interest, they charge you a finance charge, and they could charge you late fees if you're ever late on a payment. So the bottom line is, you want to build your credit, what you got to do is you have to, if you use your card, fine. You can use your card as much as you want, but you have to pay it back immediately. Like I'm saying, within 2 or 3 days.
Oh, really?
No,
I would say 215, so I can pay anytime I want. Go.
You borrow $215, right? So that means that if they're telling you that it's due a certain time, what you want to do is you want to pay it back before it's due.
Yeah,
so
because it says due September 30th.
What you do, if it's due September 30th, you pay it back. And when I say as soon as you can, I mean like this week or next week. You never on a credit. If you want to build your credit, you never, ever wait until. There's two things you don't do. Number one, you never pay late. That's the first thing. Second thing, you always pay off your balance. I mean zero. The reason why you have to pay it off is because let's say you owe them $250, right? But let's say you only pay off $50 or you only pay off $100. They're still charging you interest and finance charges and whatever on the other money you owe. So the thing about it is that $200 quickly becomes $215 or $230 or $220. So that's why people are so fucked up with student loans.
Yeah.
Because the problem is they got student loans and they're not paying the interest that they have to pay, for one. And then on top of that, they're not paying the principal.
Interest, right?
APR, your APR is fucking 23. God, wait, what's
That's
your
a lot.
APR is motherfucking 23%. That is fucked up. So they give you a $1,000 credit limit and a 23% interest. It's like this: for every dollar you borrow, you got to pay them 23 cents back. Think about it like that. That's how you think about APR. For every dollar you borrow, you got to pay them 23%, 23.9 actually. You got to pay 20. Yeah. Figure it like this: for every dollar you borrow, you got to pay a quarter. So that $200 that you charged, multiply that $200 times, what is it, 0.25, 25 cents? What's 200 times 0.25?
0.25?
Yeah.
53.75.
So you're going to pay them $53 because you charge something for $200. If you wait, if you pay it now, you don't have to pay them interest. But if you wait a month or another month and you still have that balance, you're gonna have to pay them, and then over
interest.
time. And at first you won't feel it because your limit's only 1,000. At first you won't feel it. The problem is when they start giving you more and more credit cards, like they start offering more and more credit cards, eventually you'll start charging things that you can't pay right back. Yeah, then they got you.
Yeah, because I have two credit cards. I have one for Capital One and I have one this. My credit score right now is 665.
Well, if you want to make that credit score go up from 6, whatever it is, to 8, because where you want to, ultimately, you got to be above 750 to qualify for the best, lowest loans. When I walk into the bank, I walk in with my dick swinging out. I'm like, yeah, you got to give me whatever I want at the lowest percent interest rate. It's the difference between you buying a car and paying $300 a month and buying that same car and having to pay $500. The interest kicks your ass, especially if they charge you 25%. If they're charging you 25 cents on a dollar, you think the math. See, the problem is they don't teach this stuff because they don't want you to know. They want you to be deep in fucking debt.
Yeah, I know.
I paid back my student loans 10 years early, and I'm like, it was freedom to pay back my student loans. And that's the way you got to think of it. So my advice to you: whatever you buy that week, at the end of the week, you never want to spend more than you got, but at the end of the week, you gotta pay that shit off.
Wow.
And that's my advice to you.
I'll pay it tonight then.
And before you know it, you do that for 3 years. Never miss a payment, never late on anything. For 3 years, maybe 4 years, I guarantee you'll be 800 easy. And once you get past 750, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
But most like friends and stuff who fuck up with their credit and they charge everything, they buying Jordans and shit, and they're buying fucking cell phones and all this stuff. I have friends who had like $3,000 and $4,000 Nextel bills when I was in school. Fucked his credit up. You want to make sure that you always pay on time and that you always run a zero balance. So you can use the card whenever you want, but you have to pay it like 1, 2, 3 days after. You never wait till the end of the month, ever. And I guarantee you'll watch your credit score just go up.
And I could pay like half, right? Like in a week? Or
You can pay what you can afford to pay, but the key is you don't want to spend more than you can pay back. Because if you wait to pay it back, you're going to owe them what you borrowed plus the interest. That's how it works.
I'm gonna just pay it tonight. Then that's crazy.
Pay it tonight.
I didn't even think of that.
You didn't think of it because they didn't teach it to you.
They never.
They're not going to tell you that because they want you to end up owing Goldman Sachs fucking $30,000. They want you to end up fucking deep in debt. That's how it is. Why do you think student loans are so fucked up right now? Because most people, they borrow, but they don't think about when do I have to pay this back. That's what happens. That's exactly what happens. But yeah, I know you'll be good with it. Just follow my advice. Okay. See, I'm up here. Big truck is schooling the children. I'm trying to keep them out of Goldman Sachs' pocket. I'm out here schooling the children out here. Because y'all won't teach them the shit that I'll teach them. Because y'all don't give a fuck about us. That's why I gotta get the zero sugar Mountain Dew. Because you don't give a fuck about me.
So I owe $215 for that Apple Card. If I pay the $215 from my credit card, does that matter or not? That's another thing you never do. You never pay off a credit card using a credit card.
Oh, okay. See, you know what? You know how you got to think about that? Imagine if I'm a loan shark or like a mafia guy. you borrow $100 from me, and I'm like, yeah, well, make sure you pay me back by the end of the month. You got till September 1st or whatever, right? Paying off a credit card with a credit card is like you going to another mafia loan shark and say, yeah, I owe Big John over there. I owe him $100. Could you give me $100 so I can pay Big John? That doesn't make any sense.
That's what I was thinking.
Because you're still going to owe him over there.
Yeah.
The problem is his interest rate might be higher than mine. Like if I'm charging you 15%, but this guy over here, Big Tony, is charging you 30%, now you owe Big Tony $1 plus 30. That doesn't make sense. You never use... See, that's another way they get you. Like, they send you these bullshit checks in the mail. They're like, oh, yeah, well, you can transfer all your balances from one card to this card. Or if you have a bunch of cards, you can transfer all your balances over here. They're going to charge you for that shit, number one. And number two, you may end up with a bill over here so big that you can't afford to pay either one back. So the bottom line is this. You spend some money on it, fine. Pay that shit off as soon as you can. The other credit cards you have, if you owe any balance, pay them off. When you hear this say minimum payment, you don't want to pay the minimum payment. You want to pay 100% of that shit every single time you spend.
It's telling me pay half or minimum, but I'm like, nah, I pay the whole thing.
If you pay minimum payment, you'll be in debt forever, literally.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. I don't do that. I just pay the whole thing, so I didn't get over with already.
No, that's how you do. You pay off the whole thing. But then my other thing is decide which card you want to use and only use one. Whichever one you think has the best benefits for what you want, like do you want cash back, you want trip miles, whatever it is. Decide which card you want to use and only use one.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to use only the Apple Card. Cause
if you want to use does the Apple Card have your highest, the highest balance that you can go?
1,000, yeah.
Fine. So if 1,000 is the most you can go, and you want to use the Apple Card, just use the Apple Card, and that's it. The other one you don't use.
Yeah, that's why I might not use the other one. I mean, I might, but just...
Because the problem, you know what a lot of people do? They get deep into credit card debt because they use one credit card at Macy's. They use another card at JCPenney.
Yeah, right.
They use another card at Bob's Discount Furniture. They use another card at Apple. By the time you're done, you've used 5 cards. The possibility of you being able to pay all of those different cards down without missing any card is low. There's a very good chance that you're going to miss a payment. Now you owe this person $30 more than you owed before. So that's what I'm saying. You pick one card and stick with it.
Yeah,
for me, it's this Venture card. I love the Venture card.
I mean, that's for travel, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I travel. I just came back from the Philippines. I spent July in the Philippines. The last trip I went to Thailand in April. Last year I was in South Korea and the Philippines. It's like I get around and I fly business class. I'm like,
what do you do? Like, just travel? Or you have job over there?
no, I go over there for just vacations. I work here. Nah, man, I get around, boy. I get around. Yep. But that's how you do it. That's the only way to build your credit. You have to spend on the card and then you have to pay it back. That's the only way to build your credit.
Maybe one day I'm going to get that venture card and I'm going to travel the whole world.
You can do that.
Yeah, I know.
You can use what you got right there. And you can just take the cash back. You can use it to buy what you want. Like if you want a flight upgrade or if you want to pay for a hotel. Those cards are fine. They have either cash back or travel points. But just decide which one you want to use. And you invest your energy into just one. That's how you build your credit. Because my credit score is at 801 right now. I'm trying to get it higher. No, once you pass 750, you good. You good. That's what you got to do.